Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/ask Reddit by Planet Reddit. What is something that sounds extremely wrong but is actually correct? We are closer to 2040 than we are to 1995. La 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 la, I can't hear your lies. People born in January 2000 are legally adults. This is what I meant to say, but I ucked up the phrasing. Shit, that just made me realize. On the 31st of December, 2017, every person over 18 in the world would have been born in the second millennium, whereas every under 18 would have been born in the third millennium. My favorite answer to this is, the last execution by guillotine in France occurred the same year Star Wars was released. 1977 was a lovely year. Not for that one guy though. Wait, did he get to see it first? In English, set has more meanings than any other word, over 400 uses. Yep, there's actually a whole branch of linguistics dedicated to studying that. We call it set theory. That's for the tag-along thread. What sounds extremely correct but is actually wrong. WowieDictionary.com link. Unvaccinated children are statistically less likely to develop autism. You have to be alive to develop autism. Edit. For the sake of clarity, unvaccinated children are not guaranteed to die of a preventable disease. I am arguing they are more likely to die than a vaccinated child. I am also not arguing it isn't present from birth, but instead it would not have a chance to develop if they are dead. I was almost marginally triggered. Well done. Clever. But since autism is something you are generally born with, it still is factually inaccurate. A ton of people is 12 people. Or one ARP's mom. That was a nasty crack. Speaking of nasty cracks, how's your mom? Or 8 if you're American. The 10th President John Tyler, president from 1841 until 1845, still has living grandchildren. Strawberries and raspberries aren't really berries, but bananas are. Along the same lines, peanuts aren't a nut. Also sperm, but people make that mistake all the time. On the contrary, snozzberries really do taste like snozzberries. Smokers have an average longer lifespan than non-smokers, because most smokers are 18 and over, and most children that die are non-smokers, lowering the average lifespan. Go to get more sick kids smoking. This one pretty sick kid should also drive lifted truck and drink Monster Energy drink. Is that sick enough? You either die a non-smoker or live long enough to be given an option to become a smoker. The other day I heard someone say boughten as a past tense variable of to buy. I nearly flipped my shit, thinking there was no way. Apparently, way. Edit. There's been some discussion whether it is a verb or rather an adjective. From what I found from googling, it functions as both. Formed from the past tense of buy, the word boughten takes bought and adds an, just as hidden comes from hid, the past tense of hide, and like hidden, boughten has two functions, adjective and verb form. In the Little House on the Prairie books, the word boughten is used a few times, as in boughten broom. For the longest time I thought boughten was some kind of material the stuff was made out of. Edit. This is now my highest rated comment on Reddit. Thanks. I hate it. Also, for context, I got most of the books when I was very young, between about 4 and 7, and this was back in the 80s before Google existed. English is fucking weird. English is 3 languages stacked on top of one another in a trench coat trying to function as a real adult. Having 6 fingers is a dominant trait in a Punnett square model. I just learned that in class the other day. Being a midget is also dominant. So, is the reason we're not all 6-fingered little people because of sexual selection? 2 copies of the achondroplasia, dwarfism, gene is lethal. That's why that is unlikely to become a common trait. A polar bear has black skin, and its fur is clear. If you look closely at polar bear fur, you also drastically reduce your lifespan. You can also pet them, but only once. Polar bears and brown bears are often considered different species, but polar bears are actually a relatively new subspecies of brown bears, and the two can interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Also, mules can very rarely produce foals. In the Netherlands, Santa Claus is accompanied not by elves, but by somewhere between 6 and 8 black men. Ha 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 ha, I know. I'm Dutch and they're called Zwartpieten. Is it true that they used to be slaves, but now they're just good friends? Plot twist. It's actually an inner city basketball team that Santa hired to dunk presents down the chimney. The Japanese word for lemon is rimen. Before you call me racist, ask Google. Priest 1 rimen. There's a long list of Japanese words that were adopted from English that just sound like someone doing a racist Japanese impression. Colorado. Nintendo started up in 1889. Kinda makes sense why people would think it sounds wrong though. They're pretty much only known nowadays for their games consoles. Nokia was founded even earlier, 1865, and was involved in paper, wood and rubber industries among others. The Ottoman Empire still existed back then too. Imagine, a whole empire based on putting your feet up. Maine is the closest US state to Africa. I bless the Maines down in Africa. I recently found out that Toto is not the name of a single black man, but the name for the band of a group of white dudes. There was some place, I can't remember where, but some city in Africa that for much of the year is colder than New York. I think the reason was elevation. Nuclear power is safer and cleaner than any other source of energy generation mankind has ever made, and by a wide margin. Even more so than solar or wind. I know that most energy sources are polluting, but I've always seen solar and wind as the perfect utopian compatible energy source. Correct. Solar produces roughly 40 GCO2/kWh of energy, because it is more material intensive than nuclear for a given amount of power generation. You need roughly 20 square kilometers. That's 20 million square meters of solar panels to generate the same energy as a 2 GW electric plant. Wind does better, with a median of 11 GCO2/kWh versus nuclear's 12 GCO2/kWh median. However, nuclear's minimum CO2 footprint is only 3.7 GCO2/kWh, against wind's 7 GKWh. Nuclear's median value is due to us running mostly 40-year-old reactors with 50-60-year-old designs, in inefficient configurations, compared against present-day tech for wind power. Were we to start building new nuclear plants en masse, the CO2 footprint would be closer to the present-day minimum than the present-day median. Hydropower has the lowest CO2 footprint of them all, median of 24 GKWh, but minimum of 1 GKWh. Hydropower is really quite good. We should use it wherever we can. It's just not scalable because it's geographically limited and we've already dammed up most of the places it makes sense to. Plus there are non-CO2 related ecological impacts. Of course, solar and wind can't fail as catastrophically as some other power sources, so people don't notice. Hydropower also does worse than nuclear. Actually, it's very similar to nuclear. Powerful, clean, reliable energy, with rare but catastrophic failure modes. The worst dam burst occurred in China and killed over 22,000 people, and dams breaking are actually not nearly as uncommon as nuclear accidents. Nuclear power has had 3 major accidents: 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, and Fukushima. The first had 0 deaths. The second had 4,000 deaths. The third had essentially no deaths, although you could argue a number up to perhaps 50 people amid a tsunami disaster that killed 15,000. It's interesting that you say that Fukushima Daiichi to be a nuclear accident. I have always regarded it to be more of a natural disaster. What caused the reactors to shut down was the earthquake and the following tsunami, and even then it went through the shutdown in case of disaster process as it should have. I think it's formidable that the damage in Daiichi was still so limited from how bad it could have been. I don't know enough about 3 Miles Island. That's from before my time in the other part of the world. Chernobyl is something that should never have happened. It was a combination of idiot management and lack of naysaying by the workers involved. They were going to test something purposefully, having shut down majority of the safety mechanisms a nuclear power plant has. I still find it rather fascinating how now, more than 30 years later, Mother Nature has reclaimed the ground there. It's a cruel yet beautiful reminder that if you mess with safety, it can and will go horribly wrong. At the same time, Chernobyl caused a significant tightening on the security rules regarding power plants. Sometimes accidents are needed for improvement. Do you have 2 hands? Congrats, you're above average. Don't forget about your legs. I don't have hands on my legs. The color orange was named after the fruit. Yo, what should we call these round, sweet things? IDK, oranges. Cool, now what do we call this new color that's made by mixing red and yellow? Hey, that's the same color as oranges. Orange it is. Whoa, inventing English is fun. Before that, orange was referred to as red, probably in much the same way as a lot of people would call things like burgundy red or aqua blue. I'm imagining that's why people with orange hair are known as redheads. It was also called yellow red or red yellow in a lot of languages, and fire yellow in Swedish, using the word for fire that specifically refers to a larger fire in a building, forest, etc. Lighters were invented before matches. I don't know why this makes me mad, but it does. Alaska is the most northern, western, and eastern state in the US because one of its islands stretch across the line into the eastern hemisphere. Greenland is both north, south, east and west of Iceland. The unicorn is actually the national animal of Scotland. Did you know that William Wallace drank from the breast of a unicorn? Unicorn milk. Those were William Wallace's last words. But the movie producers thought that viewers would be confused by that, so they changed it to freedom. It was either that or adding a unicorn breastfeeding scene at the beginning of the movie. Unicorns have breasts? What is this, anime? Female ferrets can actually die from not having enough sex. Today I learned I'm a female ferret. It's not from not having enough sex, it's if a female goes into heat and doesn't mate, it will kill her. Bleeds to death. It's bizarre. ETA, I was wrong. They get estrogen poisoning and develop aplastic anemia, so it is blood-based, but not bleeding. Reddit is more popular than Instagram, also Twitter, also Yahoo is more popular than Amazon. I'm curious. Based on what metric? User count? Because I would guess conservatively that like 80% of total Reddit accounts are also throwaways. Or bots. If there are 23 people in a room, there is a more than 50% chance that at least 2 of them have the same birthday. Edit. And with just 70 people, the probability is higher than 99.9%. I've been explained the birthday paradox. I think that's what it's called. So many times. Seen it reenacted in classes. I still can't figure it out. Well, it seems unlikely because you imagine the situations of being in a room with 23 people, like at school, and rarely has anyone else had your own birthday. But the statement says there's 50% chance that any 2 people could share the same birthday, not one particular person and someone else. The big confusion is that it's not anyone sharing your birthday, it's anyone sharing anyone's birthday. Each person in the room has 22 chances for a shared birthday. Most people think it would just be one chance. There is a species of shark, the Greenland shark, that has a lifespan of approximately 500 years. 392 plus or minus 120 years, to be exact. That really is far from exact. Edit. Yeah, I get it. Precision accuracy. I'd really like to sell you guys a beer and give you exact change plus $120. Well, they have an exact mean and an exact margin of error. That seems twice as exact than just an exact average. Exactly. Earth is the center of the observable universe. Take that, Copernicus. Even better, you are. Technically, you are at the center of the observable universe. There are more exceptions to the rule I before E except after C in the English language than there are instances where it is true. There are also more trees on Earth than stars in the galaxy. I before E except after C and when sounding like as in neighbor and way, and on weekends and holidays and all throughout May. And you'll always be wrong no matter what you say. I before E except after C. Except when your feisty foreign neighbor Keith leisurely receives 8 counterfeit beige sleighs from caffeinated atheist weightlifters. Weird. Inflammable and flammable mean the same thing. France has more time zones than Russia. Because of the islands, right? I seem to recall from geography classes, an eternity ago, that France is also ranked quite high in sea territory ownership despite being a fairly small country. That's the same reason that France has the longest domestic flight. I think it's between Paris and Saint Martin in the Pacific. It's probably Lyon. Apparently Saint Martin is in the Atlantic. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr. were born in the same year. And they're both dead. The age of consent is 14 in Italy. Somebody touch my vaginate. I hate that I laughed at this. I'm sure there are places in the world where girls are married off younger. In Catalonia, the nativity scene, Birth of Jesus, features a man taking a shit as well as the other regular characters. Yet it's called the Cagatio. Also, the Cagatio is a replacement for Santa Claus in certain Latin American countries. They decorate a log with a face and legs, and a week before Christmas the kids leave food out every day to feed it. On Christmas, they sing a song while beating the log with a stick, and it supposedly shits out presents. The more you feed it, the more presents it shits. Or at least that's the theory. Edit. Maybe this is also in Catalonia? Learned about it 3 years ago from a Spanish teacher who had traveled to so many countries that I can't remember which. But he learned about it via personal experience with a host family. Edit part 2. Yup, I yucked up. Not Latin America. Definitely Catalonia. And also some places in the province of Aragon. That is Barcelona. Edit part 3. Jesus Christ, I need to look at a map. Barcelona is in Catalonia. Join our community Discord, link in description. Generally, it's more likely and consistent for things to go according to plan than horribly wrong. Kinda deflated my pessimism a little bit. On a related note, the news reports on how the world doesn't work. For example, man bites dog. Things that go to plan or are common normal aren't news. For example, dog bites man. This means that arguably watching the news regularly can make you less informed about how the world works than someone who never watches the news. Something to remember while browsing Reddit and taking it too seriously. If you put your finger in your ear and scratch, it sounds just like Pac-Man. Be honest now. How many of you tried it after reading this? Guilty as charged. It works. 2. The battery light on your dashboard is a better indicator of your alternator failing than your battery. The Turin helicopter is the same as the Turin pterodactylus. One would think that the word is helicopter, but it's actually helicoter from ancient Greek helix, spiral plus terror, wing. The original name of Pepsi was Brad's drink. You are statistically more likely to be killed by a vending machine than from a shark. Fun fact. If people regularly interacted with sharks and occasionally shook them vigorously, this statistic would be different. Yeah, but if sharks dispensed snacks, every school would have won. Beeves is a plural of beef. All the planets fitting between the Earth and the Moon. This isn't totally false, but it also isn't completely true. Most calculations to support this fact fail to take into account the radii of the Earth and Moon, since celestial distances are measured from the centers of the bodies. When taking them into account, it turns out this is only true when the Moon is close to its apogee, greatest distance from Earth. The sum of the diameters of the planets and radii of the Earth and Moon is larger than the average distance between them, but less than the maximum. Owning a slave wasn't criminal in England until 2010. The trade of slaves outlawed in the 19th century. If you give birth underwater, the baby can live its whole life without needing to breathe air. I mean, anyone can go the rest of their life without breathing though. An average of 100 people choke to death on ballpoint pens every year. Charles Darwin and Abraham Lincoln were born on the same exact day. The fax machine was invented during the same time people were traveling the Oregon Trail, not the video game, the actual Oregon Trail, 1843. Dinosaurs walked the earth many months ago. Factoid doesn't mean a small fact or trivia. It means a piece of information that people think is true because it's accepted as true though isn't. So factoid is truly a factoid. Traffic signals, lights, were in use before automobiles. The zipper method on roads. I know it pisses people off when cars are all in the merge lane and try to cut in, but it's actually more efficient. That lane is there for a reason. It works just like a pants zipper, absolutely fine until it gets in the way. Not exactly the right kind of thing, but I saw a gamer tag on Xbox once that was Big Digger Nick and I was like, whoa, hang oh, okay, never mind. The all-time record high temperature in Alaska, 100°F in 1915, is higher than that of Hawaii 98°F, 1957. 50% of Canada's population lives south of Seattle. While the letter E is the most common letter in the English alphabet, it's actually the least common first letter for major cities all over the world. If you go south from Detroit, you end up in Canada. Donald Trump is president. Not my president. Edit. I'm not American. The state vegetable for Oklahoma is the watermelon. Greenland is icy and Iceland is green. The first Native American that the Plymouth colony met just walked up to them and asked for a beer in English. nmwikipedia.org link. Toronto is south of Minneapolis. Minnesota is the furthest north of the lower 48 states. Maine is closer to Africa than Florida. Greenland and Alaska are a lot bigger than they appear on maps. The way maps are drawn can really skew our perception of size and orientation. Men don't get paid more for the same job. Correct. The issue is that women are underrepresented in a lot of higher paying careers, so the average woman makes less than the average man. Still a problem, but not the same problem most people think it is. There are 3 doors, and 2 of them contain a goat while one has a car. You want the car. You select a door but don't open it. The game show host opens one of the remaining 2 doors to reveal a goat. Should you stick with your original door or switch to the remaining one? You should switch. It's not a 50/50 chance now as many think. It's the Monty Hall problem. mathworldwolfram.com link. Oxford University predates the Aztec civilization. If you put black pepper on the freshly sliced side of a strawberry, apparently it makes the strawberry taste sweeter and the taste of the pepper is non-existent. Thinking face. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for 3 videos a day.